Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast. Darren Mitchell here on a beautiful winter's day here in Melbourne, Australia. And it is around 11 a.m. as recording this. And it's an absolute pleasure to have Charm Moore all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, which is like 9 p.m. at night. So
that's right. And it's warm here, very warm.
So when we say warm, give me a temperature in Fahrenheit.
85 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay, so that's like 20s in Celsius.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good. And for 9 o'clock at night, that'd be pretty nice.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Brilliant. Chum, love to delve in all things sales, leadership, abundance mindset, blockages, limiting beliefs, and all sorts of stuff. We were talking just before we press record about your different roles, and you've been in sales and biotech for a number of years. You're a life coach, you're an author, you're a specialist in digital wealth. So this is going to be an intriguing conversation because, as we talked about, we don't know which direction this is going to go.
We have no idea. We have no idea where this is going to go. We're just going to take our viewers and listeners on a journey.
Yes, and it will be a very interesting journey indeed. So for the listeners' benefit, let's just delve into a little bit of your background in terms of where you kind of came from and what led you to get into the work that you do now in terms of abundance mindset. Obviously, you're a general manager and running a team in the pharma area. You're a life coach, digital entrepreneur, all different sorts of things. So,
all different things.
So just a little bit about your background, because I'm really intrigued in terms of what led you to do what you're doing today. And we'll get into some of the key principles today as well.
Okay, good deal. So I didn't come from money, and I'm a Jamaican by descent. So my parents are Jamaican. I was born in England, headed there on Friday actually for a nice little trip. But
nice.
I just didn't come from money. Money was a source of friction and all that good stuff that happens in childhood. And I grow up, I become a nurse, and I've made it. Like now I'm going to have money all the time and life's going to be great. And I'm going to just waltz off into the sunset and buy a big house and live the American dream. And that just doesn't seem to happen for me. Over and over again, I'm falling into these traps of being broke, a car almost repossessed and then get another one, house almost foreclosure. What is happening? I'm smart. I'm a good person. I'm missing something. Something is missing. I wanted, like I said, I was a nurse for years, and I just couldn't seem to get ahead and stay ahead. Let's put it like that. Couldn't get it. And I decided, there is something else here. I want to find out what else is going on. So I started, and I say going in, asking the questions, asking the universe, what am I missing? What am I missing? What do I need to know? I learned that I had a money wound. From childhood. And as a result of that, I had these unconscious beliefs. And because money was such a source of friction, even though we all work for it every day and say that we want it, I was what I call an avoider. I avoided it. I didn't like it. I didn't look at my bank account. That was normal for me. I didn't look at my bills to pay them. So I paid a lot of interest and late fees. I did all those things that come from a wound. I call that now an archetype of money avoider. Once in 2006, 7, 8, when I started really digging into that and it becoming really congruent and real and gave me an aha moment, I decided to do something about it. I read books like The Millionaire Mindset by T. Harv Eker, Florence Scovel-Shinn's The Game of Life, Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. I did all that stuff because the other stuff had not worked for me, right? I was working. I was learning about money. I was learning all those tangible things, but I was still not getting ahead. Why not? Because I had this wound and I didn't know. It was totally subconscious, and I knew that I couldn't be the only one.
Mm.
And because money is one of the biggest things that causes us to stay in shame and quiet, nobody knows that you're struggling because you're not supposed to, because you're a whole nurse, right? You should be making good money and living the American dream. Why are you broke? So you don't tell anybody, so nobody knows, and you're living in shame and you're not getting any help. But I got help.
Yeah.
And when I did that, the awareness was key. And then I started dealing with the money avoider. I started doing a lot of things, a lot of exercises and things to get that avoider to grow up, because that was the 7-year-old that saw her mom hurl her piggy bank at her dad's forehead and develop. Yeah, that's a true story. It's a true
Wow.
story. I know you're laughing, but it's true. But that stuck with me, right? And money scared the absolute daylights out of me. But
Yeah.
who knew?
Mm.
So the 7-year-old kept showing up for years, making big money decisions and couldn't pull it off.
Yeah. And it's interesting you talk about that because there are so many habits that we form that become underlying subconscious almost ways of doing things, which we don't question,
Right.
but it has its origins back in the imprint stage of 2 to 7 as a child.
Absolutely. And but we don't question it. And why would we?
Yeah.
We're not even aware that it's
Yeah.
happening and
Yeah.
nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
They just keep telling you, save your money, save your money. But if you're afraid of it, you're not going to save it.
That's it. That's it. And
You're
with
not
that,
going to do it.
no. And sometimes when people are in that situation, they tend to look external to themselves to try and figure out and justify
Exactly.
why is this happening to me?
And I did do that.
Yeah.
But that didn't work either, because I'm a person that goes after it, right? I go after it. So sure, I went external first and tried to fix all the external stuff. That didn't work.
Mm.
But I tell you, once I went internal and found that avoider and started working with her, that is when I manifested the job in pharma and not before.
Hmm.
And when I really started healing those wounds, I'm telling you, miracles started happening. I started developing, gaining real estate, doing Bitcoin, got a day job in pharma, started my company. All of that after the avoider started rising up.
So let's talk about that in terms. I'm really
Mm-hmm.
intrigued in terms of the process, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I get that there's lots of books out there. You can listen to
Yeah.
podcasts, you can
Right.
read and watch
Right.
movies and stuff like that. But the
Right.
biggest work we've got to do is on ourselves, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So just talk me through I guess the process, because you mentioned you got help, but
Yes.
was there like a pivotal moment where you said enough is enough? I've got to do something. And what was that thing? And just talk to me about the process of, I guess, healing
Okay.
and becoming not an avoider anymore, but maybe
Yeah.
a person who will attract better
Right.
things
Right.
in life.
So I know the pivotal moment. I got very, very ill and could not work. 2005, I developed lupus, is what they thought I had.
Yeah.
And I was bedridden. That is a scary place to be as a nurse that works on the floor.
Mm.
You cannot get out of bed, because I had a very bad flare of whatever this was. So that created so much fear in me that I was like, and I still had children in college, right? If this is what they're saying it is, and I have allowed myself, because I was not paying attention to my health, and I've allowed myself to get this ill where I can't get out of bed, like I'm bedridden right now. And I don't know how long they were giving me rounds of steroids to get me up out of bed.
Yeah.
If this is the case, and I never can walk again, or whatever this looks like, how am I going to live?
Mm.
How am I going to live? I didn't know, because my thing was to get up and go to work. So I said, I got to do something online, or I've got to figure out who I am. I was like, who am I meant to be if I'm not going to be this person?
Mm.
And I surrendered to that question, and I decided to become a life coach. And when I did that, you had to be coached. And my life coaching class was 24 weeks long. It was powerful. It was the best thing I could have done for myself. And I did not have the money.
Mm.
But the owner of the life coaching school was so, I don't know. She said she talked about it later. She said there was just something about you that I wanted you to take the course so bad that I let you take it for free until you could pay me back.
Mm.
And I did that, which was another thing, another miracle that happened. But I did that, and that was what happened. Every week, you're coached. You cannot be a powerful life coach if you don't get your own wounds healed by being coached. So
Mm.
she's coaching me and training me on being a coach with all the others in the class. And one of the things that came out was that I was a procrastinator. Where did that come from? And we had to dig deep as to where that came from. I had a fear of rejection. Where did that come from? Childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And then I avoided, but I didn't catch up on the money avoider thing. That was dropped to me later. But I did learn about the procrastinator in me, the people pleaser in me, who is dead. She's dead. And then the people pleaser is dead. And then the third thing, right? So between those three, the fear of rejection was huge, huge in me. That created such a problem for me that I was always saying yes because I was the fear of being rejected, right?
Yeah.
So that just being in life coaching classes for 24 weeks straight
Mm-hmm.
was enough to, because it's a habit, right? You don't, you just have to do a habit for 21 days. I did this for 24 weeks straight. I was in class twice a week, coaching people and being coached, coaching people and being coached. And all this stuff started coming up and out.
Yeah.
And it changed me. It changed my life. It changed me. It was definitely a gift to me that I'll never forget. And after I was done, I just kept on that trek, kept on learning about myself. I went way in, way, 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 way in. And I'm here today as a result of it. I wrote the book as a result of that. I developed the abundance quest out of that. And that's how I developed the money archetypes, the money monk, the avoider, the spender, and the hoarder. Those are the four archetypes. That came as a result of me starting to heal and seeing that I was making money and miraculous things were happening. Somebody just walked me into pharma. It wasn't like I applied and tried to get in. No, somebody said, I really like your style. Give me your resume, and just flew me to Seattle and hired me on the spot. That's how I got into pharma. Nobody else's stories like that tried to
Mm.
just get in. And this was oncology right
Yeah.
off the bat.
So people might listen to it and think, oh, that you were just lucky, Charm.
No, you can't. There's too much, dude. There was too much things that happened for it to be luck. There's
Yeah.
just too much. I could go on and on. I'm trying not to make the podcast too long. I have story after story after story. The foreclosure thing happens, right? Everybody's house. I was in a brand new subdivision. That whole 2008, 2009 debacle happens.
Yeah.
My neighbor on the right, my neighbor on the left, my neighbor in front, my neighbor in back. Everybody lost their homes. There I am with the last man standing in my subdivision. And they were sending my mortgage payments back saying I wasn't paying my mortgage when I was.
Yeah.
It was the, BOA and the blah, 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 the names of the banks.
Mm.
They had gotten all the paperwork all jumbled up. Remember, it was a mess because everybody was buying and buying and buying your loans. And
Yeah.
mine got just dropped out. So they decided to sell my house on the courthouse steps. So I'm like, what's happening? What's happening? I go to the courthouse to see what even that process looks like. It
Yeah.
actually does look like that. But I don't know what happened. I went home, the house never sold. Then I get a call saying, hey, don't you want to save your house from the same bank? I'm going, I don't even know what's happening.
Mm.
They said, come downtown. I go downtown. They said, we're sorry. We made a mistake. They took back all of that, redid everything, gave me back all the money that they had, started sending me checks in the mail. Who had started sending me checks in the mail for months, months and months and months. I got checks of restitution, and they changed my credit report back to good. It was come on, come on, come on. Listen, I'm a scientist. This was hard for me to even grasp that this was happening to me.
Yeah.
I'm not a woo-woo girl, right? But I was forced to have to go, oh my God, I work in this world of science.
Yeah.
1 and 1 is 2. But in my world of mysticism, 1 and 1 is 11.
Mm.
I straddled the fences, and
Yeah.
here I am.
And how much of that, you talk about, you're the like the I think it wasn't
The
witch. I
the
was
witch
gonna
on the team.
I was thinking guru, but it's not guru. Maybe
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
the witch is the
that
guru.
too. They call me all the Oracle. That's my nickname, the Oracle.
The oracle. Because when if people are listening to this and they're thinking, hang on, did, what? It's because if you've come from a background where white is white, black is black, one and one equals
Yes.
two, um, you're not taught to question things. It's just that this
No.
is the way the universe actually works, and just
Right.
just accept the way things are.
Right.
But what you're talking about is there's a whole new world, and I did a lot of NLP with my coaching programs that I
Yes.
did, and learning about quantum physics and stuff like that. You start to question
Yes.
everything, and then you start to be more curious about, okay, what's actually happening in the multiple dimensions and multiple layers that are happening in
Exactly.
the universe. And
Right.
it starts with self. It starts with looking internally in terms of what are we doing, and I don't want
Right.
to make this sound like woo-woo stuff, but what are we
Right.
manifesting through our thought processes, our patterns, the ripple effects, and all that sort of stuff?
Right.
People around you, though, when you were going through
Yes.
all of this, I'm really curious in terms of their responses and their reactions to this, right? Because they would have known you as a certain archetype, and all of a
Right.
sudden you're now going through this process.
Yes.
What happened with that, with the people around you?
I got calls and emails and carrier pigeons going, what is happening? We're seeing your life just blow completely up. What is happening? And all I could say is I went in and I asked the question and I decided maybe there's something else happening here. Because all I can say to the viewer is if it's working for you right now, then there's nothing to change. But in my case, this was not working. I had to I had to look at what else was going on with me because I knew that abundance and success was my birthright.
Mm,
Why wasn't I successful? I knew there had to be something else. That's
mm,
the only reason why I decided to look into something else and do something different. But
yeah,
if it's working for you, you're good.
yeah,
But it wasn't working for me.
yeah. And the interesting thing about that is back when you were going through that 2006, 7, 8,
Mhm.
it's also interesting that at that time there was this book that came out called The Secret, right? Around that
Oh,
time,
yes.
right? Which talked
Ah,
about the manifestation and the law of attraction and stuff like that. What was
yes,
really interesting about that, and it was written by an Australian person,
yes.
was that it talked about manifestation and the law of attraction, but it missed a
Hmm.
very important element, and that is action and taking work. Because
That's
one thing,
correct.
yeah, so one thing I want to be really clear about here is that if we're not getting the results that we want,
Got to
one
do the
thing is
work.
you got to do the work, right? It's not
You've
just
got to
sitting
do the
there
work.
wishing upon a star.
You cannot. And you are so right about that. I cannot tell you. We're working right now, 9 o'clock at night, my time. I'm always working. Like, but I'll say this though, that it's very fun work.
Yeah.
I love what I do. I'm having fun, but it's work.
Mm,
It's work. And the other thing they missed was it's not just thoughts that become things, feelings,
mm,
your emotions around it
yeah.
become reality for you, come into your reality over time. And
Yeah.
of course, it's not overnight either.
No,
It's not
no.
overnight.
So let's then talk about, you mentioned that you had blockages around money. There was a
Yes.
procrastinator, there was an avoidance strategy and
Yes.
stuff like that. From a tactical point of view, from an action
Hmm.
orientation point of view, just talk
Hmm.
through some of the things that you put in place in relation to making progress towards
Yeah.
less procrastination, more abundance, less avoidance, and
Yeah.
things that you could share that
Yes.
people might be able to
Help
then
me.
take a bit and help.
Well, first, like I said, you got to figure out which one of them you are. Are you a monk? Do you believe money is bad, evil, blah, blah, blah? You got to do that. You got to go in. Remember, I tell people, just remember, okay, avoider, spender, and you're going to have to be honest with yourself. No shame, no
Mm,
judgment. This is not your fault.
mm,
This is not your fault. All we're trying to do is move beyond this because I can't dwell on 7, right? I got
yep,
to move beyond it, but I got to know what it is.
Yeah.
And then am I a hoarder? Am I an Ebenezer Scrooge? Just think it through. And once you think it through, take accountability. Okay, I'm the avoider. This is me. Okay. Now you got to make that conscious decision. Do you want to do something different?
Mm.
Because if you don't, you don't. And that's okay too. You're saying, it's too hard for me. I don't want to look at my bank account. I got to stay here. I
Hmm.
got to stay here. I'll just live with the way things are because nothing is going to change unless you make the conscious decision to self that you're going to meet self and help self along.
Mm.
So that's got to happen. Once I was there and decided, okay, the avoider has got to die. She's got to die. Then the first thing I did was, okay, I need to look at my bank account. I need to take some steps here. The first thing, and I got this straight from T. Harbecker, was the jars.
Hmm.
The strategy was live on 55% of your income. So get the jars and start figuring out what's 55%, your whole paycheck after taxes, blah, 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 55%. That is what you're going to live on. Okay. And then the other 45% has to be for debt and has to be for living, right? So I was diligent. I
Yeah.
got the jars, but I didn't use them. I just had them for visual. Get the bank accounts. I got a bank account for main, bank account for living, bank account for debt, and bank account for emergency. I got them. I started putting the money in each one, and you get a bank card for just the one that you can spend. The
Hmm.
others, they stay there, and you put your mortgage on automatic draft, and you put your car on automatic draft. Those have interest attached to them. So
Yeah.
any interest, right, interest bound accounts you put in the debt. Credit cards go in the debt account, and you don't touch it. You have your bank move them over every paycheck, right? And at first, it's really tough,
Mm.
right? It's really tough. Stick with it, right? What started to happen though, here's the interesting thing about it, is I'm developing a relationship with my money and I'm looking in the bank, which I was never doing. That was the thing that was happening. That was I didn't get. I was going to do this thing, right? But what was really wonderful is that the result of that is I developed a relationship with the money. I started, oh, I'm short in the 55%. I'm going to have to move this over for a couple of weeks. And I did all of that. And I'm
Hmm.
doing that. And as I'm doing that, and I'm spending more attention, because what you put your attention to, what you put your attention on expands.
Yeah.
That's just universal law, has nothing to do with me. My money started to expand. I started to, like I said, little things that I hadn't even thought of, like checks coming in the mail from the mortgage company, started coming in and I could put them in there
Mm.
and I started having more expansion. Then I got, an offer to go to California and learn aphoresis that led me to the pharma company. Those miracles, but I was putting all my attention on money.
Hmm.
I was putting my attention on it. It has to expand. I
Mm.
started taking care of it. I started looking at it. I started being more intentional. I took away all the stuff I don't need to spend it on. Right? I'm like, I don't need to spend my money on that. And I can see. Then the bank will give you graphs and charts of what you spent for the month. I'm like, well, holy crap, that's not okay. I
Mm.
can cut that out. So that was the first tactical thing. I used the tools that the banks had that how are you spending your money? You can just click in one click, it'll show you a whole graph of your whole month. It's
Yeah.
really fascinating. I was fascinated. I
Yeah.
never used the tools, the money tools that are free to you, right? So that was the first thing. In the same token, so here's the tactical non-woo-woo stuff over here, but you also have to retrain your brain,
Mm.
right? So I'm doing affirmations. I'm doing affirmations not just around money and abundance, but I'm doing affirmations around my own self worth, that I am worthy of love, that I am worthy of acceptance, that I am, And I started doing those and I started putting them all over the house
Yeah.
so I could see them. No, I didn't have a vision board. I'd done one of those and I'd manifested everything on a vision board real quick. So I was like, okay, I'll just do manifestations everywhere. And I used to love Florence because she had manifestations that were really, really great. I started saying them and I started listening in the car on the way to work. And I started retraining
Mm.
my subconscious because you didn't get here overnight. I was
Mm.
7. By that time, I was in 2006, I was 45.
Yeah.
So, right, it took years to to get those unconscious beliefs, negative beliefs in my head. So of course it was going to take a couple of days to get these positive beliefs in there.
A couple of days.
Couple of days. So, give yourself time, but it's the awareness to keep, but it will happen.
Yeah.
You can train your brain to do anything you want it to do.
It's amazing when you think about that, because there's so many people that say, "Oh no, it's not. It can't be that easy. You can't just say a little bit of a mantra and everything changes." Because we are, as a human being, we are hardwired to believe the negative, right? So
That's
everything we
right.
see is almost slanted towards the negative, and it's more believable. So you have to work hard
Exactly. It's
at being more positive.
Listen, they've always called me Pollyanna. I'm good with it, right? I bring the Pollyanna to everything and it works for me.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. It works.
Well, you're just in it, and it takes effort, because
Yes.
it's a choice though between, I can choose to believe the glass is half full, or I can choose to believe the glass is half empty. Either
Right.
way, my reality will say I'm right.
Yes. Right. And all I ever say to you is as long as your half empty glass is working for you, you're good.
Hmm.
But you can't say that you want what I want. I want your life. I hear that all the time now.
Hmm.
Oh my God, I want your life. But guess what? I put in the work
Yeah.
and I have a half full glass.
Yeah.
Are you willing to go from half empty to half full? Because that's really part of the deal.
Yes. Well, it's a journey. It's a journey.
Yes.
It's interesting, as
Yes.
you're talking there. I remember one of my mentors, who I've never met, but I
Mhm.
listen to a lot, is John Maxwell, right? Who you may have heard of.
Yes.
He's written a lot
Yes,
of
of
books on
course.
leadership.
Awesome, awesome,
And
awesome gentleman.
he tells a story about a young person who wanted to be a trainer, a keynote
Mhm.
speaker, who came up to John after one of his seminars and said, "You know what, John, I've made a decision. I want to be what you are. I want to do what you do." And John turned around and
Right.
said, "That is fantastic. Here's the
Mhm.
question. Are you prepared to do what I did in order for me to be able to do what I do?" And so that's the challenge, right? So if
Yes.
things are working for you right now, and if you're in sales right now and you're getting the results, then be happy with that, be grateful for that.
Yeah.
But I also challenge people to say there's always another level you can get to, and
Yes.
never be satisfied with where you're at. You can be content, but never necessarily be satisfied.
Exactly. Exactly. And so, my sales team, they're amazing. And they let me be me.
Yeah.
And they call me and they say, "Hey, I'm struggling here, I'm struggling there." And we work it through. And sometimes I just bring some of the charm magic to the team and everybody's okay with that.
Well, so all the stuff we've spoken about today, because I have certain beliefs around, certainly in sales,
Mhm,
I mean, there can be some external factors that can impact your situation, but
mhm,
essentially, irrespective of the economic conditions, irrespective of who's the president of the United States or the prime minister of
mhm,
Australia, there are
mhm.
organizations and individuals that will thrive, and there's organizations and individuals that will not.
That's exactly right. That's very true. That's
So,
true. I'm going to be interested to hear what your take on that is.
well, it's interesting, and I was speaking to somebody just before, and we were talking about the importance of surrounding yourself with people who pour into you, who
Yeah.
edify you and lift you up,
Yes.
not
Yes.
create excuses and justification as to why things should be, insert
Yeah.
reason here. Because irrespective of the economic conditions, you are in control of your own destiny and what you
Yes.
can do day to day, right?
Absolutely.
So let's just talk then about, I guess, economic conditions, because you were talking about the GFC and how people around
Mhm.
you were losing their houses, and fortuitously
Yes.
you weren't. Um,
Yeah.
how much of that was due to your internal work you were doing, and not necessarily accepting the external circumstances, which would have been easy to accept and almost justify in terms, you know what? Yeah, this is no good. We might have to slow down or give up.
Right. That's a really good question. I wasn't as far along in my journey as I am now. However, I have to admit that I did just find I saw everybody falling to my right and my left, and I remember saying that is not my reality.
Mm,
That's all I could say at that time. That is not my reality. I don't know why, what, when, but this is not my reality. I'm hell. I'm not. I'm. I said exactly what you said. That this economic system does does not dictate my personal finances.
Mm.
This economic system does not dictate my personal finances. And I held firm and I kept on doing my work and I kept going to California and working. And I would leave the house and I would be like, it was just such a mess. And what I did do was I did not have anxiety around it.
Mm.
I did. I said, I did not make phone calls. I did not call the bank every day. I did not look at the news. I did not look any of that. I didn't. I just said, universe, it's in your hands. I've done everything I know to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm paying my mortgage. It's being sent back to the bank. I don't get it. If my home does not belong to me and you see fit that this is not my path, then it is not my path.
Mm.
And if this house does belong to me, it cannot be taken from me. And I went back to work in California and just did not, and total non-resistance and surrender. And the result is exactly that. It's the lack of anxiety that I had around it. I received phone calls. Would you like to save your house? Come downtown Atlanta. We're going to fix this for you. That's what I got.
Yeah. It's so what you're talking about there is you're able to let go.
Yes, I
Yeah.
had to. There was no way. This whole system was so much bigger than all of us, right?
Mm.
There were people that were so smart, moguls in the real estate market, losing their shirts.
Mm.
What was little old me gonna do? What did I know? I didn't even have a real estate background. All I knew to do was surrender and allow.
Yeah.
I said, this is bigger than me. If this house belongs to me, it's mine. And if it doesn't, it's not.
Yeah.
I will not operate in resistance. So yes, that's the stance I took because that's all I knew. That was limited information
Yeah.
I had at that time.
Yeah. And the key thing there is I want to raise is it's not that you didn't care. It's just
Right.
that you knew what, you know what, if it is to be, it will be.
Right. Yeah, you're right. It wasn't that I didn't care. I knew I had done everything that I can.
Mm.
I had done everything that I could. There were so many external factors. All I could do is make myself available to do. If they said, fill out this form, I filled the form out and I sent it back in. I got a million FedExes, fill this form out, FedEx it back. I would
Yeah.
do that. But past that, what else could I do? Could I
Yeah.
worry myself to death? No. I was like everybody else. I worried at first,
Yeah.
but this dragged on for 2 years.
Yeah.
So I can tell you, I worried for 90 days. And
Yeah.
then the other 18 months, I didn't bother to worry.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Because it's a great lesson in choosing what to focus on and thinking about what do I have control over versus what don't I
Yes,
have control over. And I'm just going to
absolutely.
focus on the stuff that I can influence. And what
Exactly.
will
And
be.
control.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went back out there and kept learning aphoresis. And that aphoresis led me to here,
Mm.
where I am right now.
Yeah.
So yes, my house was being sold on the courthouse steps, and yes, I was going to walk into my destiny at the same time.
Yeah.
And then no, my house was not sold on the courthouse steps, and I sold it for 3 times what it was worth in 2020.
Yeah.
3 times what it was worth. So and I've had 3 houses since then, and landlord and Airbnbs and all of that.
Nice. And so with the team you're currently working with at the moment,
Yeah.
because there'll be people listening to this who are salespeople or sales leaders who got some sort of challenge with their numbers and stuff like that. How does that play out practically each day? I know you're being considered to be, let's create the charm here. You are the charm. You're the
Right.
witch. You're the oracle and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But for sales leaders who have situations, what sort of advice? And maybe this sort of pumps into some of the lessons of a life coach that you
Right.
talk about. What are some things
So,
that we can practically put in place to help remove whatever the blockages are that might exist within the team?
man, that's $1 million question. It is because every team is different.
Yeah.
And that word team is so pivotal because even though you have your own territory, you're part of a region, right?
Mm.
So not only do you have to focus on the individual and their territory, but you have to focus on the team as a whole, as a leader. It can't be one or the other. Yes, the sales leader is responsible for the entire territory. That's one number. But Sally over here, June over here, Mary over here, John over here, you know, they're responsible for their territory, and that's their little region.
Mm.
And every day that I wake up, I'm thinking about each and every one of them and how are they going to tackle their little island. At the same time, get them to understand that their little island is just as important as everybody else's little island for this entire country to, right? So when I wake up, that's what I consider.
Mm.
And who am I going to call first? Who had the worst day yesterday that I follow up on today? Because momentum is huge. It's just huge. And in my particular company, we've got a new launch on the horizon. So there's a lot more pressure in a lot of areas because we've got to learn something new, plus keep up
Yeah.
everything that we're doing right now, right? So
Yeah.
that's a lot of pressure on people.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. Yes, there's sales, which is a very big, major job, and a sales in oncology pharma, but these are still people
Yeah.
with their own frailties, their own families, their own concerns, and all of the other stuff.
Mm.
That, thank God, if you come into this job, you are highly driven, highly motivated, intrinsically motivated to win.
Mm.
So that's a plus for me as a sales leader, right? It's a plus that
Yeah.
I don't have to micromanage them,
Mm.
but I've got to be all that I can be for them. What do they need? And that might be the question that I ask. Okay, what do you need today?
Yeah.
I know you had a bad day yesterday. What do you need today?
Yeah. And when you talk about that, I couldn't help but think, and I had Simon Sinek's words ringing in my ear that says, the people in your team, they are not in your charge. You are responsible for those in your charge. And
Yes.
what that means is, as a leader of a team, and certainly as a sales leader, when you do have a person who perhaps is having a bit of a rough trot, they're doing all the fundamentals well. It's not a case of pointing the finger and saying, you're not doing good enough. What's your gap
Right.
closure strategy? It's a case of, hey, you're not doing so well. Is everything okay?
Right.
So
Yes.
lead with empathy first.
And lead with empathy first. Is there anything I can do to help? I know who you are. I know what you bring. I know what kind of firepower you bring. You
Mm.
don't have it today. You didn't have it yesterday. That's okay.
Yeah.
What do you need from me to be able to get you back on track?
Yeah. Which is authenticity, and that's what people want in their leader, not a leader who, as you said
Absolutely.
before, micromanages, who just points the finger, who
Oh,
sits in
yeah.
the Oval Office
Doesn't
and
hear you.
thinks, "Yep, I'm the high and
Doesn't
mighty."
even know your job. Doesn't
Yeah,
even know your job, right? Oh,
that's
those are the
it.
best.
That's it. That's it. So, what I'd love to do, I know you've written a book called "Lessons of a Life
Mm-hmm.
Coach," and I saw a
Mm-hmm.
little video you talked just before the launch of that because it's recently launched, right? In July.
No, the Abundance Quest. My Abundance Quest recently
Oh, was that
launched.
last year?
The book, the book is 10 years ago.
Oh, is that right?
So
Okay.
yeah, yeah, the
Okay.
book is 10 years ago. I've launched the Abundance Quest since then.
Okay, so
And
what
that's
are
a
the what
10, that's a mhm,
I was just going to ask you because you mentioned in
yeah.
a video I saw four key
Mhm,
lessons out of the book, but if that's 10 years ago and the abundance quest
yeah,
is here and now,
yeah.
what are some of the key principles that make up the abundance quest that
Like
people
we talked
can
about,
grab hold of?
like we talked about, the monk, the avoider, the spender, the hoarder.
Ah,
Those are the key, right? Right, for the abundance quest. And that money is energy. It's not paper. So chasing it will elude you, especially if you have one of those archetypes from a wound. Not everybody has a wound, so not everybody's going to have an archetype. But if
yeah,
you find yourself making money but never having it, making money, never having it, it might be something to look at. So, and that vibrational energy, right? We can't feel like we're going to attract when we're sad and depressed and life is bad and I hate my job and I hate going to work. Don't expect to be wealthy in that environment, in that vibrational space. That's all
yeah,
I'm going to say.
yeah,
Got to be at least, I've got a vibrational scale that I use. It's just like anybody else's. 7 is love, 8 is gratitude, 9 is peace, 10 is joy and enlightenment. You got to sit in there on a regular basis, not every day. Some days you have a bad day, have it.
Mm.
Enjoy your bad day for what it is.
Yeah.
Wallow in it, all that. I'm just saying, you just can't live there and expect to have a wonderful life. That's
No.
the basic premises, right? So I always and so I'm always telling my team, you got to get your vibrational energy up. If this is not today, what do you need today to make you? What do you need to do today to make yourself feel better?
Mm.
Right? I said, I need you to feel better than you do right now. And they'll tell you, they hear this from me all the time.
Yeah.
What do we need to do? Because I know that as long as their territory is not going to do well. It's
Mm.
just not.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't, even if it did well for a while, it's not sustainable.
Mm.
Right? And that's just spiritual law. There's nothing like we breathe oxygen. Nobody cares, but it's there. It keeps you alive. What goes up must come down.
That's
That's
it.
just the law of gravity.
Yeah.
It's there. They teach us about the law of gravity because it's easy to understand.
Yeah.
They don't teach us about the other laws of the universe because they're too hard and woo woo, but they still are.
Well,
They're
the
too,
law,
it's
yeah, and they are they're universal laws.
yes, they still are. It's still in play, whether
Yeah.
you believe it or not. Whether you believe
Yes.
oxygen saves your life or not, it doesn't
That's it.
matter. It
It doesn't
still
matter.
does.
That's it. It's an irrefutable fact. So with that, the abundance quest, a lot of
Mm-hmm,
it, a lot that we've talked about is work on self, which I think is one of the
mm-hmm,
most important things that anybody can do, whether even if you're not in sales, right?
mm-hmm,
So thinking about things like tactical things like gratitude and things
mm-hmm,
like that, and being
mm-hmm.
considering the things you do have versus the things you don't have. So not
Don't
being
have
envious and being happy.
huge,
And as you said before,
huge.
it's okay to have bad days because what we're not
Yes,
saying is you have to be up and about every single day and every single
right.
moment is just joyous. You're going to have
No,
the shitty days, right? Just
yes,
don't
you're
stay
gonna have
there.
them. Don't right. So when I have those, I say, you know what? I'm staying in my shitty day today. I want to stay here. I'm enjoying it. For God's sakes, let me have it.
Yeah.
All right, but I know I can't stay there.
Yeah.
Right. All right, I'll give it today, but tomorrow I'm gonna work on getting it back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you talked before about having affirmations and things like that. Are there other
Yes.
things that you use or you share with your team to help them, I guess, just build some consistency and some momentum so that those shitty days become less and less and we're in more control over our destiny because we're in more control over our thoughts and therefore in more control over the feelings that we're starting to experience.
Like I said, coaching was huge. Coach, I told you I was coached for years. I
Mm.
didn't realize it at the time, but because I was in a program, I had somebody that was coaching me and I was coaching them. So I realized that that was probably one of the biggest things for me because you're accountable
Mm.
to someone, So when my thoughts were off or where I was in a misconception about something, they could say, you know what, is that true or is that maybe your assumption?
Mm.
So yeah, you really do have to have some kind of to move beyond that. So I have to say that coaching definitely helped. It's pivotal. The other thing I would say is because once some of this stuff you start doing it, you start realizing, am I in the right job?
Yeah.
Am I doing what I love? You will start to shift and make changes.
Yeah.
It's just what happens. These are tactical things. You will wake up one day and say, I'm on the wrong job.
Mm.
I'm working with the wrong person.
Yeah.
I'm married to the wrong person. I'm sorry, but all of that happens. So be
Yeah.
buyer beware.
Yeah.
Aware with awareness comes a whole new life.
Yeah.
I don't like this friend,
Yeah.
or I do love this friend.
Mm.
I really want to spend more time in my life with this friend.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to make the decision to take the leap from this role to that role.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So being coached, doing the other tactical things I said, but what
Mm.
happens is you start to open up, and when you start to open up, more things are presented to you
Mm.
that you now have to look at it with your new eyes because you have new eyes.
Yeah.
You will look at things with your new eyes and be aware that you have to look again, or
Yeah.
you have to think again, or did you hear that right? All those things will start to, you won't be on autopilot.
Mm.
You won't.
No, you'd be more
Because
conscious.
that's what I can tell you, a lot of my people are on autopilot.
Yeah. And they go through the motions and then they wonder what's happening, what's going on,
Happen.
because they
Right.
externalize versus what we're talking about is you need to internalize first.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
and the from a coaching perspective, I often talk about this that the reality that you're experiencing is the reality or the perception of the reality through your eyes. It doesn't necessarily equate to actual reality, right?
Right.
So you've got
Exactly.
to
That's why
consider
being
that.
coached,
Mm,
right? Being coached or being groups. I was in group coaching a lot. That was very helpful to hear other people's perspectives. And
mm,
then I was being coached a lot. It just
yeah.
was by default,
Mm,
that I was being coached a lot. And that really sped up
yeah.
my process.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'd have been further behind.
Yeah. So the overriding message here is that we are literally, as despite what some people might want to believe, we are literally in control of our own destiny, right? So
Yes.
irrespective of the political situation, irrespective of the economic conditions, we are in full control of our destiny, right? And it
We
starts
are.
with us.
It really, I know people don't want to hear it, but how many people have been downsized out of their job?
Oh, lots. And I think, oh, why did it happen to me? I'm such a
Right.
good person.
And at that point, what do? You say to yourself, what am I going to do
Mm,
now? And why do
mm,
you say that? Because you are in charge of your life. They aren't.
that's it.
Well, they were for a minute while you were employed, but then they just,
100%, 100%. So, Sean, this has been a very enlightening conversation. I'm glad we've talked
it's
about these
been,
topics. So,
me
as
too.
we wrap, people are listening to this who want to know more about the work that you do, and connect with you, and even if they're intrigued in terms of learning a little bit more about going
Mhm.
inside and maybe identifying some of the
Mhm.
blockages, where's the best place for people to connect with you?
They can connect with me on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
They can connect with me on Instagram. I am Charmin. Both of them are I am Charmin or Charmin More. I have a website, iamcharmin.com, so they can go ahead and look there. But if they go on IG, they can find me and then they can, you know, get a 30-minute free consultation.
Nice, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant. So, one last piece of guidance or advice that perhaps is top of mind we haven't covered that you want to leave us with.
Oh my gosh. Let's see. What would I say? I would say again, if this is not working for you, if what's going on in life right now with your money, and it's not just about money, abundance is of everything, the
Mm,
abundance in your home and everywhere else. If it's not working, something's not right. It's time to go in,
yeah.
and it's time to look at something different because it's not all you think. It's not all 3D.
Mm,
It's not all 3D. It never has been, and it never will be.
love it. Love it. Great way to finish. Hey, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. It's been a fantastic conversation. So thank you.
It's been great. Thank you so much. And thanks for the forum. You're doing a great job all the
Appreciate
way
it.
out there in Australia.
It's a long way away.
That's a long way away.
Thank you. All the best.
All the best.
Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.